we have synthetic data in marketing studies, exploring the promises of Gen AI and synthetic data. The presenters are Thomas Duhard from Ifop France, who is another Daedalus who navigates the maze, the labyrinth of consumer behavior. And he's joined by Samuel Cohen from Fairgen, Israel, who identifies with Prometheus, who molded humanity from clay, just like synthetic data models the world through data. Please welcome Thomas and Samuel.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all, and nice to see all of our good friends also in the audience. I'm Sam Cohen, CEO of Fairgen, and it's my close partner, Thomas, Director of Data Projects at Ifop. A bit of story here. 2 years ago, I approached Thomas and his team, saying, we believe synthetic data is going to be the next thing in this industry. No one believed in that at the time, and this conference has been full of talks about this topic. So I think, I really I'm appreciative for Thomas and his team to have believed in that at the time. Just to start, I just want to say a few things, the few key things I hope you will remember from this talk, and then go through it. The first main thing is synthetic data is ready for brands in market research. That's the main thing we want to prove today. The second thing I want to say is even if you don't believe in that, we will show you a framework to be able to quickly and easily figure out whether you trust whatever claims we're making in a scientific way. So this is sort of the frame of things here. And the way we'll approach that is in a very scientific way. We'll show you the largest benchmark of synthetic data in the history of consumer research, thousands and thousands of parallel tests at scale. We'll show you a case study of the first time synthetic data was used to be published in the context of elections by the French commission of polling. And we'll hear also from L'Oréal about a segmentation use case, just so you see that it also is being used and explored by brands in this world. So yeah, I'll leave Thomas today.
Thank you, Samuel. So over the last year, we've all seen AI become a big deal, with ChatGPT as a leading example of generative AI. So this technology promised to change both our work, of course, but also our personal lives, handling creative tasks we never thought computers could do. So in the market research industry, in our industry, we started using Gen AI in our processes, and specifically with synthetic data. So here is a quick timeline. You know it, we have been through many changes, from face-to-face interviews to phone surveys and then online studies. Every time we had to validate this change. So now AI is again a game changer, but this time it's not just about how we collect data, it's also about potentially replacing real people answers by synthetic ones. So today, we are going to address two key questions. Can synthetic responses replace field collection? And can we trust AI-generated responses? So now I'll pass it through to Samuel, who's going to speak about technology.
Let's try to sort of clean up the roots and see what's going on right now in synthetic data. Like everyone has talked about this topic here, and we'd like to split it into two families of methods. On one hand, you have synthetic personas and LLMs. So the idea is to try to mimic the way people think by training and fine-tuning LLMs on surveys having been answered on in the past. It's great because it's fast and cheap, so it's cool for testing ideas, concept testing, all of these things. However, there's limitations around bias coming from older studies and from the issues with calibrations of LLM. So it's not necessarily matching the probabilities that would come out of a real sample coming from the field. So sort of it's fast and cheap, but there is issues around bias and calibration. Now, we are focusing on synthetic boosts with statistical approaches, which are, and we will prove it, as reliable as real field boosts, up to some extent and limitations, obviously. And the main limitation is you have to be careful and follow guidelines on how and when to use it. And you have to know these guidelines. And we've spent a lot of time establishing these guidelines. So yeah, that's sort of where we fit. And we'll tell you all about sort of on the limitation and risk side of the boosting approach, how to make sure to do it right in your company. So yeah, what can we expect from these guys? And let's see it with Thomas.
So thank you, Samuel. So we are talking about synthetic boosts. That's real data enhanced by Gen AI. So to recap, in quantitative research, our main goal is to obtain accurate and useful insights. And however, we often face challenges in collecting enough data to properly analyze specific segments. That's the challenge of representativity. So to solve this, we usually use boost samples, but this can be expensive, time-consuming, and sometimes impractical. So this is where synthetic boost might help. Firstly, it promises great flexibility because all targets, even small or hard to reach one, can be analyzed without needing of identify them ahead of time. And that can be used even for studies that were completed a long time ago, of course. And secondly, it promises cost savings by quickly creating boosts without the need of oversampling. So now, synthetic boosts are supposed to offer more granular insights. But at this stage, exhaustive testing is crucial to ensure that they can really capture the complexity of specific segments. And Samuel will now guide us through this validation process.
Yeah. So we really thought deep about how to really know whether it works. We're in a field that's like very careful about technology. It needs to be perfect, or it's not going to integrate the industry in a scalable way. So we went and so deep also with Thomas about how to make it right. So our thoughts are sort of threefold. First, you need heavy quantitative validation that allows to really say at scale what is, probably in our case, a boost factor. How much can you deduplicate and augment data? The second thing is qualitative. Are the results that are going to be presented in reports logical, consistent, coherent? And the third thing is there are some statistical developments because in this industry, again, we use statistics to test everything. So for example, we use hypothesis testing to be able to validate results that are going to be presented in reports. And synthetic data needs to be adapted to be integrated into these workflows. So I really want to explain how it works, but the spoiler is we proved that as part of a field that already ran, as long as your segment is worth less than 15% of the study, you're able to triple the segment's effective size. So if you have a study of 1,000 people, a segment of 100 people, you can turn it into 300 people. Now, how do we prove it? The first thing is a heavy quantitative benchmark on more than 7,000 segments coming from about 100 surveys. This is like ultra high scale. We trained model for every single of these surveys, and we average at a boost factor of 2.8. So for any segment of 5, 10, 15% penetration, we can turn it into a segment that's on average 2.8 times bigger than what you started with without going back to the field. Here's how we prove it. We take big surveys of 10,000 respondents or more with a niche here that represents less than 15% of the data. Then we extract randomly 1,000 people from these 10,000 people, within which, so for example, for a niche of 10%, you're going to have 100 people in this pink triangle, and here are 1,000 people in this group of pink triangles. Then we train a model on this data, these 1,000 people of which there is a segment, and we boost it, we triple it effectively. And then we compare it to the holdouts, which was the pink triangles that didn't get into the training data. So we're able to compare this boost here to the holdout data and to know how much are we now worth. And so basically, you run this at scale. Here we have like some way to evaluate the effective sample size from the difference between these triangles. And we're able to say, to get the same margin of error, you would have needed to have 3 times more data. So yeah, now I'll pass to Thomas to talk about a real case study where it was applied.
That was a teaser. So do you remember the European elections that took place earlier this year? Probably I do, because that was a tricky period for our political scientists to understand the behavior of different population groups. So that's why I want to talk now about qualitative validation. And no, we are not speaking about technology anymore. We are speaking about coherence. Because no matter how many statistical tests support a method, it won't be useful if the results lack coherence. So for the first time, we used a synthetic boost to improve the representation of a specific group, the secondary school teachers, whom we identified as a swing group, as we say. So we worked with a total sample of 8,000 people, French people, as you know I'm French. And using a synthetic boost, we were able to increase the statistical representation of this swing group from 116 to 580. So the results were then compared to previous publication, which confirmed the sociological plausibility of the results. And they were compared to the raw results, so the results before boostings, which shows that the inconsistencies were corrected by the synthetic boost. So I won't go into all the details, but we observed a shift to the right in this usually moderate group, and that helped explain the final outcome of the election in France. So to conclude on this topic, Samuel will now discuss some of the recent statistical developments.
So there is really now two things needed here to be able to ensure that this can be deployed safely in the industry. So the first thing, this is our main results. This is probably the results we're the proudest of, like in terms of like development and making sure that this data is of good quality. So here, what we see is across these 7,000 boosts, for boost where the segment was of 20 people, so 2% penetration, the boost factor is of 3.5x, which means that you turn 20 people into 70 people, again, without going back to the field. And you have the same margin of error as if you had 70 people. Here, for larger segments, we're able to, on average, 3x the data. So you have 150 people, now you have 450 people, again, of new individuals with the same margin of error as if you had collected 300 more people. That allows you to zoom in the same way that you would have if you had boosted this data in the real world. A second thing that you need to be able to do is to estimate confidence intervals. Because we're, again, whenever there is a result being presented in a report to brands that agencies prepare, you need to be able to make sure that the results are significant. And so we've created a method that allows to estimate confidence intervals out of synthetic data that Thomas and Ifop evaluated also and validated. And that's pretty deep stats, and we'd be happy to talk more about this. This is currently in beta. So really, these two numbers, I think, are key to remember. And always right now, out of 7,000 experiments, we can really trust that we can get an average of a 3x boost in the real world. So I'm going to introduce now Franck Brezou, Global Director of CMI at L'Oréal, with whom we've run in Ifop, obviously, a study on segmentation, and he will tell his vision on synthetic data.
Beauty is a very fast-moving industry, driven by a lot of innovations. There are new brands popping up each day, and we need to explore the demographics of these brands and understand, decode what are the desires of demographics that go into very small or niche brands. So we were very interested by this technology of synthetic data. When we lead a very big quant study like a segmentation that we do with Ifop, it becomes difficult to look at smaller brands, but we have this need to elevate and upgrade our portfolio. So we wanted to understand that, and we explore this methodology of synthetic data with Fairgen and Ifop. And we try to modelize the pattern of responses of people going for small brands of our portfolio, of our competition. And it was very interesting. That is really a game changer for us to explore the smaller brands and drive our portfolio.
So thank you, Franck, for your insights. Again, it is essential to have this type of qualitative validation of the process. So I will be quick on the next one about risks related to synthetic data. So firstly, without clear guidelines, synthetic data can be misused, leading to incorrect insights and poor decisions. And secondly, the most important, the use of synthetic data must follow strict ethical guidelines for our interviewees to ensure to protect their privacy, and for our clients to ensure transparency concerning the use of this technology. So now, Samuel, quickly, what's next for GenAI?
Thank you. So the first thing is we'll keep working on improving the boosters. So right now we have an average of a 3x boost. We believe we can go higher, 4x, 4.5x. We don't know yet where the ceiling will be. There will be one. We won't be able to turn 10 people into 1 million people, but we didn't reach the ceiling yet. And the second thing is we need to raise the industry awareness about how to integrate this technology, how to test it, and how to present it to brands. And there's many areas where synthetic data is being used, and we need to help raise this awareness everywhere, and also best practices for all of these use cases. You want to conclude?
Okay, so to conclude, this is exciting as a lot has been done concerning synthetic boost, but as you see, it's still a work in progress, and there are many possibilities to explore in order to humanize the myth of synthetic data. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well done.